it's 5 o'clock and we'll get started. So thank you all for coming. This regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council will come to order. Please take a silent roll call. And Don Little, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, go ahead. Okay, go right ahead. Thank you, sir. This is from your spot. Thank you, Stuart. And I would just remind everyone when we're speaking to speak directly into the mic and to turn the mic off when you're not speaking. First agenda item is the consent agenda. So all items listed here under are considered to be routine by the Town Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Item number 1, approval of the December 5th, 2023 Town Council regular meeting minutes. I believe item number 2 is not in the packet, so that will not be on the consent agenda. Item 3, approval of the April 2024 paid bills, approval of the cash receipts and disbursements for February 2024, approval of cash receipts and disbursements for March 2024. So of items 1, 2, 4, and 5, would anyone like to pull any of those items for discussion? So hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval of consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, and 5. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, and 5, excuse me, thank you. 1, 3, 4, and 5.
So I move that we approve the consent agenda items 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Good catch, thank you. Current events, item number 6. So there's a few things to share. We have our next community conversations Friday, May 10th from 9 to 11 in the Visitor Center. So Councilwoman Sheila Amorosa and I will be there, so please come on by. It's very relaxed setting. Talk about whatever's on your mind. General plan update schedule. So Planning and Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing for the recommendations of the council for the general plan next Monday at 5:15 in the town council chambers. So that's a critical meeting to go to express yourself or understand what's happening with the general plan. Another current event is Memorial Day. So Monday the 27th in the Cave Creek Memorial Cemetery. We have a program, starts at 8 o'clock, runs for about an hour. Our guest speaker is a U.S. Air Force Colonel, nurse, Deborah Lecker, and she served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom as a chief nurse. So it's a very good program, really community-based. The Boy Scouts are there, Veterans Heritage Project, a local young student sings the national anthem. It's just a great program to come to. And starts at 8, we're done by 9. And the 2 other items. One, street maintenance. So you may have noticed that we did street sealing in the town center. So there's all the cracks are shiny and black now, so we did that a few days ago. And then next week, in the nighttime, we'll start doing the slurry coat on the streets in the town core. So that usually it'll be in 4 phases. It starts at 9 p.m., and then the streets are opened come morning. So just be aware of that. And one last thing I would add, last night, I just put in a good word for Kiwanis. So last night, Kiwanis had their scholarship award night, and they awarded to local students $564,000 of scholarships to to local kids, so Cactus Shadows kids, homeschool kids, private school kids. It's a great program, life-changing events for a lot of these kids. So if you, and where do they get their money? They get their money from the Carefree Market, the Carefree Kiwanis Marketplace. So if you go there, you're helping them out. Or if you have stuff to give it away to Kiwanis. Any other current events for anyone? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 7. Quarterly report by Rural Metro Fire Battalion Chief Brian Talley. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the audience. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Talley. I'm the fire chief for the town of Carefree and deputy chief for Rural Metro Fire Department in the North Battalion, which covers Carefree and the Rio Verde corridor. I was asked to give a kind of a brief update on what Rural Metro and the town of Carefree are doing together so far the first quarter of the 2024 year. And I'm really pleased to announce the new arrivals of 2 new apparatus that we received with the procurement department through the town of Carefree, a Type 6 brush truck, which we received through grant funding through the Salt River Indian community, and then the purchase of a brand new Pierce Enforcer fire truck. You know, in my career of 30 years, this is the 3rd brand new engine I've seen. So to get 2 new engines at the same time is pretty remarkable. In addition to the new apparatus, Rural Metro itself, through our sister company AMR, we've had a bunch of new enhancements to the technology that we have here in the valley. We've installed a brand new microwave radio antenna system that encompasses the entire valley for both Rural Metro and AMR, which really enhances our ability to receive dispatch information and communicate with our other units throughout the valley, especially on emergency scenes, and getting that crucial verbal information from our dispatch center right from the 911 callers. In addition to the radio system that we recently installed, the AMR has also moved their dispatch center over to I-17 and the 101, and it's a state-of-the-art, brand new computer-aided dispatch system called Logis. And what the Logis computer does for us is, as the call taker is bringing in the 911 call, the computer is automatically assigning the units closest to their address and getting them dispatched, which is seconds for them, or it's seconds for us, but it's minutes for our 911 folks who are looking for us to get there as soon as possible. And part of that new integration is we have new computer mobile digital terminals that we're currently installing in all of our vehicles, which ties right into that dispatch CAD, and as the dispatcher's putting in those notes, we see it live right there on our mobile digital terminal. So we can see what the call taker is taking in from the calling party, and we get that information firsthand. So for us, this is, again, state-of-the-art. All of our guys are really excited, and overall it's gonna improve, you know, the knowledge that we have, not only going to a call, but getting us there faster. In addition to the new technology and the new apparatus for Station 821, we've requested some new budget items, capital budget items for this year, which include, oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead one screen. We want to introduce our newest battalion chief, Timothy Kelly. We just brought him on board last month, and he's going to be taking over B Shift, the B Shift Battalion at Station 821 for the town, and also the North Battalion for the Rio Verde corridor. Chief Kelly comes to us from LA City, 31 years of experience, and the last 9 as battalion chief for LA City. And part of his accolades from LA City is he's a very seasoned wildland expert in the area of wildland and brush fires. And he's already impressing us with his knowledge on the wildland season that's already upon us. Now to the capital improvement items. So for this year's, in the 2025 budget year, we're gonna spruce up the station with some new interior flooring, paint, exterior paint, landscape, and also replace some of the emergency equipment we have on the trucks. Also to include a brand new 5-gas handheld air monitor, which is gonna give factual information for crews when natural gas line breaks occur, or if there's an odd smell in a building that we can identify. This new state-of-the-art handheld gas monitor is going to give the crews the information they need to mitigate the situation correctly. In addition to that 5-gas handheld air monitor, we're going to be replacing an expiring SCBA compressor. Then that compressor is crucial for our guys because it fills the bottles we wear on our backs when we go into burning buildings. It keeps their air clean, and having that new compressor is going to keep us certified and compliant with OSHA and NFPA. And then it's some other small items like replacing the aging computers and computer monitors within the station so the crews have the state-of-the-art equipment to take care of, you know, the daily reports and the other digital requirements that we have for them. Just kind of recap for the first quarter's incident types. You can see fallen injuries is one of our highest ones. Sick people is second, and then just the other related accidents that are more of a routine type call for us. And in the first quarter, out of 162 calls, 125 of them were emergency in nature. And we had an average response time of 4 minutes overall. And our 6-minute response time was met on the average of 94% of the time. And that's pretty good because the national average is under 7 minutes. Now, the big ticket item for us currently is, if everybody's not aware, with the high heat and the big winds, it's wildland season, and it's here, and it came quick. If you're not aware, currently within southern Arizona, we have 7 active working wildland fires. And those all started with the one that we had at Carefree Highway and Cape Creek Road on Saturday. Since then, 7 more erupted throughout the state that are actively burning. So the state, the BLM, Tonto National Forest, and other parts of the Coronado National Forest, they're already busy. What that means to us is we are working closely with the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management to be on top of how we can adequately respond to these calls and work seamlessly with our counterparts throughout the north boundary here around Carefree, Cave Creek, and the Rio Corridor. And to help us do our job better, we will be introducing the Firewise program, which is an NFPA, it's a community risk reduction program that we educate the community on how they can best help themselves protect their own property from wildland fire. We can help put it out, but we can't help prevent it. And that's where we really, really rely on the community to get involved and understand that it's up to them to protect their own home and their own property. We'll be there to guide them and educate them and point them in the right direction to do it, but it's going to be a community effort to protect the town. This is the Firewise program. Go ahead and go to the next slide here, please. We'll be introducing it to the town. I think May 18th is going to be our first introductory class at Station 821. And what our intent is just give a brief overview of how the program works and how the community can get involved. It is a very detailed oriented program, and it will cost some money. However, the federal government has money available to reimburse us if we meet certain benchmarks within the program. And all of that we will provide at these informational classes to the community and also to the town supervisors. And like I said, our first steps is to introduce Firewise.
I'm sorry, can I ask you how you're gonna get the word out of when these meetings are?
We're gonna go through, I'm sorry. Madison. It was right there, I promise.
Yeah.
Madison, and then also through our own social media links, and it'll be a collaborative effort between us and the town to get that information out to everybody.
Great.
And we're gonna have as many of these classes as we need to, as long as we have, you know, people interested in the classes, we'll be there to give out the information.
Thank you.
And lastly, another big goal for Rural Metro and the town of Carefree is we want to make the town of Carefree a heart-safe designated city. And we do this through the Department of Health Services, and we'll seek a 2-year accolade for being a heart-safe community, which we will teach CPR classes to no less than 50% of the town. We'll have AEDs throughout the town and certified by manufacturers' recommendations and kept up, and teach the classes to meet this heart-safe accreditation that the town will be very prestigious to hold. And as you can see, the 2024 year is already very, very busy. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for us. We have a lot more in store as we go throughout the rest of the year. If there's any questions that I can answer real quick, if time permits.
Thank you for offering, and thank you for coming. So I have a few questions, but first I'll open up to the council. Go right ahead.
So with the Firewise program, will there be online tools that we can access if we can't make a meeting, or?
The Firewise link that's on the NFPA website, you can go through and look through what's there.
Okay.
But once we start introducing the classes, we'll have plenty of handouts to give out and plenty of guidance. We're gonna need some more internal support through community leaders within the town, and not necessarily council, but just people in the community who wanna step up and lead this for the community. We'll be looking for that type of help as well.
Okay. And in terms of the fire on Schoolhouse and I think it was Highland or Fleming, I'm not sure where. What is the protocol if a fire is heading towards Carefree when it's in another town or in Tonto or something? Is there a protocol, or how does that work?
There's not necessarily a protocol, but we have an interworking agreement with our local partners that if we need to be pulled into that scene to start progressive protection for the town, that will happen.
There was a fire a couple days ago on the northeast corner, Cave
Mhm.
Creek Road. Yeah, how was that handled? Did you get all the help you needed, or was it big?
Oh, yeah, so there's actually two of them in the same place, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. The one on Saturday was a 50 by 50 grass fire, which means it was just low fuels. Even though the winds were high, it didn't spread very far because there wasn't a lot of fuel for it to take off with. And we were able to get on scene, engage in the fire, and get it wrapped up pretty quickly. Daisy Mountain in the city of Phoenix were dispatched to that fire to help out. And then again on Sunday, the same scenario. It grew a little faster because the winds were heavier on Sunday. But in addition to Daisy Mountain in Phoenix, we had the city of Scottsdale also show up, in addition to DFFM, the Department of Forestry and Fire Management. And we were all there. It was a collaborative effort. And I think we were there till about 10 o'clock that night, making sure there was no hot spots and the wind couldn't take any embers and reignite something else.
Good work.
Thank you.
Do we know what caused it?
So I can't speak officially. Unofficially, there's potential that somebody lit it intentionally. We've turned that over to the sheriff's department, and they're actively going through neighborhood and asking for witness statements and doing their investigation on it, and I haven't had any feedback since then.
Other questions from council? So I have a couple questions. So I know you talked about it today. You've made some improvements to the dispatch system in terms of communications. But in reading the reports, I know that dispatching, the time, I guess, from the time the call comes in to the unit is dispatched has
Right.
been a challenge for rural Metro. So what's being done to address that, other than just the hardware and the technology that
Right.
you've
So
installed?
officially, Rural Metro doesn't have direct influence on how AMR does their dispatching. Fortunately, I'm the actual liaison to AMR, and I work closely with the supervisors and the comm manager, and we're addressing every single call and getting justification as to why those calls exceed the allotted time for the town contract. And because it's a new system, people are getting used to, they used to write this way, and now they're writing this way. So they're trying to do their best to get it acclimated to the new system, but apparently it's a work in progress.
Well, I'm glad they're working on it. and
Oh,
that's
yeah, no,
so critical.
We just
Time
have,
is everything.
we just have the report for last month, and I will be addressing those issues tomorrow morning first thing with the
great.
dispatch manager, and we'll try and get these ironed out. And we will, moving forward, we will provide explanations for each call that doesn't meet the time.
Oh, good, thanks. And I know you've been working on checking out the fire hydrants Rural Metro has.
Yeah.
Is that completed now, or?
I'll
Must
have
be
to time
close.
with the battalion
Yeah.
chiefs and see where we're at with that.
Yeah, so that's good for all of us.
Yeah,
In fact-
it's important that the water system stays clean and that those hydrants are active and not broken.
That's right, so it's good to flush them out.
Yep.
So when you check them, you flush them out, and you
Yeah.
get a good flush, I
Yeah.
have to guess.
Yeah, because it's important that there's no rocks or debris in that water because it will damage our trucks, which isn't good for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're glad to see you doing that.
Yeah.
John, I have one question. With the new trucks, you have two of them. What about some of the handheld equipment? Are we up to date on, in their condition and have all the modern gear that you need?
That's, the handheld equipment, that's where the new 5-gas air monitor comes into play. That's one of the
Right,
items.
that's
And then
one,
for the
sure.
expiring equipment that we're replacing, that's gonna bring everything up to par.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I was going back to the fire on Carefree Highway and Cape Creek Road. So when you were dispatched, when our units were dispatched there, another unit moved up, I
Correct.
believe. And that was from Rio Verde or?
Right.
So where do they move up to? Where do they go?
They will actually move up into the town.
Okay, do we ever move down, like move to them?
No.
And that's a good deal, okay, not complaining. But how do we get away with that?
It's, more than anything, we're, abiding by the contract as far as where that engine is placed in response times. And if we needed to, we could call on our neighbors in Rio Verde to help cover the eastern part of the Rio Verde corridor. It would be like a mutual aid, and we consider Carefree would be a mutual aid to the Rio Verde corridor, so we share the responsibility.
Well, thank you, Chief.
One more,
Go right ahead.
I apologize. With respect to automatic aid, mutual aid, that big debate that we had, in this incident, you had mentioned there were several divisions or departments that came to
Correct.
support us. Any issues in getting those, that support?
Oh, none whatsoever. At the field level, there's a lot of discussion outside of the field on how the automatic aid system works at the field. We just call and they come.
It was seamless.
It
when
was,
you were-
it was seamless, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Daisy Mountain in Phoenix, don't quote me on the exact times, but they arrived within 3 to 4 minutes after we were initially there. So
Great.
their response is pretty quick.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other comments from council? Questions? We have any public comments? So having no public comments. So Chief, thank you very much for coming up today.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you do.
You bet.
And we look forward to these programs. It's gonna make us all safer and
Oh, yeah.
sleep
Thank you
better.
for the time to speak. Have a good
All
night.
right, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 8. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2024-06, adapting the tentative budget and bottom line for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a snapshot of our budget process, and I know we've gone through this ad nauseum about the process, but obviously there's new players in the room and those at home are watching. I need to emphasize that this is a open, transparent process. And we go through this process every year, and it falls within 3 increments: evaluation, presentation, and approval. And we went through the evaluation process January through early April. That's when staff starts to evaluate. We're halfway through the respective fiscal year, the needs and the trends that we face. We start receiving preliminary revenue figures from the state. Our service contracts, such as Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, shares with us their cost increases for the next fiscal year. And then we identify general organizational expenses. As we collect this data, we start sharing it through the respective workshops. We had 4 public workshops this year, starting in late February. At that time, we had a comprehensive presentation about revenue forecasting, looking at a 10-year timeline and forecasting the revenues over that 10-year period, as well as our need to diversify our revenue stream and insulate ourselves from the legislative risk and the economic risk, as well as some of the social risk that our sales tax-centric model faces. The next presentation or workshop focused on roles and responsibilities of staff, what each and every one of us do on a daily basis, and essentially what our workload looks like, and goals and initiatives for this next fiscal year, and how that translates into some of the needs during the course of the next fiscal year. That all fed into our 3rd workshop, in which we did a forecast for the respective revenues for this next fiscal year, and we went through the anticipated expenditures. And then we shared with you our program-based narrative. This narrative has been out in the community. We sent it out, distributed through our electronic newsletter. If residents are not part of our electronic newsletter, it's very simple to sign up. You go onto our website at carefree.org. A prompter will initiate the ability for you to sign up for our digital newsletter, and then we broadcast all this information to you on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. Included in one of those broadcasts were each one of these workshops, the videos associated with them, the presentations associated with them, and this program-based budget. So very open and transparent process. We are now going into the third phase of the budget process, which is the approval process, which is a two-step process. That brings us to tonight, in which we're considering the tentative budget. So adopting the bottom line, which will be $13.3 million, which is approximately a 7% reduction over what was forecasted last year. And that will lead us to the final approval, the budget hearing process at our regular council date, June 4th. So that's the overall process with the new fiscal year beginning by statute on July 1st. These are areas of emphasis for this next fiscal year. They fall within public safety, infrastructure investments, community development, and community engagement. The chief did an excellent job talking about fire emergency services and some of the things that the town will be investing into the fire station. Once again, all those assets, the new equipment, the firehouse, all the equipment and fixtures are property of the town. We contract out with Rural Metro for the labor. So all the hardware essentially is ours, and we regularly reinvest in that. So the chief outlined some of those reinvestments, about $250,000 of investment. So it's a significant investment within our fire program once again this year. As far as law enforcement services, we're looking to increase the traffic patrol. Right now we have 6 months of the traffic car. We're trying to re-engage MCSO to get that extended for a full year. One of the elements of that engagement obviously is all law enforcement agencies are facing shortages as far as staffing. And it's been a struggle to hire deputies. So we're struggling with that, but we have to budget for that level of service in order to implement it during the course of the fiscal year. So the funding is there to support that year-round traffic patrol. Another thing that will be useful for MCSO is metrics. You know, they can't be everywhere at once. We're only 8.5 square miles, but everybody in their respective location has concerns about traffic speeds. So we have to disseminate them at appropriate locations. How do you do that? You do that through collecting data. And that data is through some of the solar speed signs that you find in other communities. They're there not just to educate people, but to collect data and then deploy resources to get the peak periods of when the bad actors are going through the community. So we're looking at an investment in that type of technology so that we can more effectively and efficiently help MCSO do their job with their limited resources. As far as infrastructure investment, 3 categories, broad categories: streets, drainage, and the town center. Majority of our investments on an annual basis are our streets. It's a petroleum-based product that we put on our streets, different types of applications. What we had occurring this past fiscal year is not new asphalt. Don't confuse it with new asphalt. It's a cape seal. It's a rougher texture. The whole idea is to ensure that we provide a topical coat to that asphalt so it doesn't continue to degrade because of the sun, the heat, and the oxidation that results from our warm weather. So every community looks at cape seals these days on residential streets. So it's not the uniformity that you get with new asphalt, but we are looking at some new asphalt this next fiscal year on our arterial streets. Obviously they get quite a bit more traffic, quite a bit of construction traffic, heavy traffic, commercial traffic on a daily basis, and those require that you mill about 2 inches, 2-3 inches, and then you put new asphalt down. This prevents the alligatoring that we're starting to see on Tom Darlington and definitely seeing on the west side on Cape Creek Road northbound. So we need to repair that. There will be a mill and overlay. Those are a lot more expensive than the Cape Seal. So we're looking at approximately $3.4 million, about 60% of our capital improvement program devoted to streets. We're also looking at investment in our drainage infrastructure. We have over 300 culverts sprinkled throughout the community. We also have wash banks that interface with some of our streets. And as the washes slowly migrate, I often describe washes as being a living, breathing element of the natural desert. They move both vertically and horizontally during different storm events. And sometimes they move towards our streets, and we have to provide erosion protection so they don't undermine our streets. We have several areas in the community that we need to address over this next fiscal year that deal with some of that erosion that has occurred over time, and we'll have to continuously reinvest in these drainage features. We're looking about $900,000 associated with that. About 10% of the overall capital improvement plan looks at the town center. This is a part of our economic engine, the most significant feature of our economic engine. Every community that I know reinvests in their town center, in their urban core. It's a place where people come. It's a place where people from the outside think of the community and creates an identity of that community. And certainly we need to continue to reinvest in our town center. So about 10% of the infrastructure investments over this next fiscal year are within the town center. As far as community development, the mayor talked about the meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission next week to consider their recommendation to you, the town council, on the ratification of the general plan. Hopefully we can move towards a vote on the general plan this coming fall. And then there's a number of implementation items associated with that. When you have implementation, you have costs, and we have to reconcile some of those costs. So there's some budget items within the planning and zoning budget that takes care of some of those costs. But some of the things that we're looking at is obviously updating the zoning code, updating design guidelines, and our fee schedules associated with some of the items that we process on a daily basis through the planning department and building department. From a community engagement perspective, you heard me express this before, but expanding the stakeholder platform. I think it worked very well with signage, got a lot of people with different perspectives around the table. They tried to reconcile the different perspectives and come up with some compromises. We're looking to do that on a broader perspective with different issues. For example, the town gardens. You've heard in the past different thoughts about what the gardens should be when they grow up. And you know, there's people that love it the way it is right now and people that want to make it better. So what does that mean? Having those different perspectives around the table and discussing that is something that we want to do. So that's just one example of a future stakeholder group that we're looking to do. And there might be additional supports associated with those discussions. Digitizing services, we spoke about during our staff presentations, the digitizing of services within the town. Part of that is our building permit. We're still analog, we're all paper. We're looking to go digitally and allow people to check the status of their inspection or check the status of their plan review. Even if they're traveling in another country, they'll be able to access their respective account and find out what their respective contractor is doing. And we're also looking at improving and expanding different communication channels throughout the town's capabilities. Madison has been doing an excellent job in expanding those platforms. We will have a release of an updated website in the near term. So we're really excited about some of the things that we're working on to enhance community engagement and get people involved in our discussions. So those are some of the things that are areas of emphasis in next fiscal year's budget. This is our budget dashboard. I'm not going to go into detail of the budget. If people once again want to pick this up and read about it, it looks pretty big, but it's a really quick read. Lots of graphics that support the text. But this, on a high level, is our budget dashboard. On the left side of the slide, you can see the overall forecasted revenues for our operating fund, which is called our general fund in the public realm. We're looking at approximately a little bit over $8 million coming into the town's coffers over the next fiscal year. About 62% of that is municipal sales tax at $5 million. We base that off of the five-year averages. So we could actually see more than 5 million, but once again, when you're looking and managing in a conservative way, you want to ensure that you're not forecasting revenues higher than they actually will be. So we're very conservative. It's based on the 5-year averages, and that amounts to about $5 million with hopes that we will get more than $5 million. At our last budget workshop, I noted to you that approximately 50% of that revenue from that municipal sales tax comes from two sources, retail and construction. When you compare both those categories to the 10-year averages, they're declining. Why are they declining? Well, you think of retail, there's challenges with online sales. We're competing brick and mortar businesses with online sales today. That's a growing way where people are shopping and doing their business. We're also looking at evolving cycles with CVS closed. We don't have any control over what private enterprise does. So they made a decision to close that store. That has adversely impacted, obviously, revenue streams for the town. From a construction perspective, there were legislative impacts. So the legislature changed how construction is calibrated, how it's paid out. And that had a negative impact on local communities such as Carefree. So there's a decline in what we receive from a construction perspective. On the other side, a positive light is I know there's some folks that have different viewpoints of the hotel across the street here, but accommodations is an economic driver in the state of Arizona. There's no disputing that. People come here for the sunshine and to see the desert and enjoy the beautiful vistas that we all share. That hotel has more than doubled the 10-year averages of what we collected in accommodations. And then there's spin-off traffic. People are staying there at night. They walk downstairs and go to the restaurants. We had several restaurants that have come in over time stating their experience with the hotel traffic and stating that they are open longer at night because of that hotel, because of customers walking to their respective restaurants. So there's indirect benefit as well too. So we're seeing some benefit from that hotel and growth in hospitality. From the state share revenue perspective, there's 4 sources of state shared revenue. There's the income tax that we all pay, there's sales tax, and there's highway user revenue funds, which is an 18-cent tax on each gallon of gas that we pay. And then there's a vehicle license tax. We get a proportional share of all that. It's important to note that state share revenue is down by about $200,000 this year. And I warned last year as we went through this process that the flat tax that was adopted by the legislature will trickle down and impact us. Well, it's now impacting us by about $200,000. So our share of the flat tax, the flat income tax, has reduced that line item by about $200,000. The sales tax that we share with the state has gone up about 2.5%. Doesn't make up for that $200,000 loss. And then the highway user revenue fund, as well as the vehicle license tax, is about consistent with what we've collected in the past. Cost recovery fees are our fees for services, so what staff provides to the residents and businesses and those looking to acquire a property in Carefree and develop it. We collect fees off of those respective permits. We're looking at about $1.26 million. It's interesting to note that about 2/3 of that revenue stream covers the total compensation for staff. So we try to capture as much as we can from that permitting process to cover staff's compensation. On the expense side of the ledger, approximately $7.25 million in overall expenses we're projecting for this next fiscal year. The largest amount goes to public safety. That's typical of any community. Once again, 2 facets to that: law enforcement and our contract with Rural Metro. About $2.9 million, or about 40% of that, going to those respective areas. That also includes some of the capital projects for the fire department, and some additional things associated with MCSO, but about overall $2.9 million. A little bit over a quarter of the $7.25 million goes to salaries and benefits to the employees and operations. And then about 5% to our risk management contract, which includes legal fees and our insurance policy to cover the town. When you add by policy $200,000 to a contingency, the overall expenditures from the general fund is about $7.45 million. There's two buckets when we talk about expenditures. One is the annual expenditures from an operational perspective, and one is the infrastructure. With our infrastructure, we're looking at about $5.8 million. Falls within traffic safety, drainage repairs, street maintenance, and town center. About 60% of that goes to street maintenance, and about 15% each to traffic safety and drainage repairs, and 10% or thereabout to the town center. As far as funding that, we have a grant for MAG for some crosswalks on Tom Darlington that is just slightly over $400,000. Our highway user revenue fund is once again state shared revenue, but it's restricted to only streets. So we can't use it for other operations, so we use it for our street maintenance projects. And then UTCAP is a fee that is paid through Southwest Gas on an annual basis, and there's about $47,000, which is another restrictive account that can only go to street maintenance. And then our capital reserves. We speak of our capital reserves, how they are going down, and then what's being generated as far as revenue to replenish that is also going down. So naturally, our capital reserve fund is going down as far as the balance. We could take about $5 million out of that capital reserve fund, and if we do, that means our gas tank will be about $7.5 million. Now the caveat being, as you can see here, revenues at about $8 million, expenses at about $7.2 million. There's a delta of $800,000 surplus from our operational fund. In addition, if we collect more than $5 million in our sales tax, that could be even larger. So that reduces the amount taken out of capital reserves. So what we do here from a conservative management perspective is project worst case scenario. So at the low point, we're looking at 7.5. That's not what we hope for, but that's just projecting the worst case scenario. And then we have a rainy day fund of $2.5 million. Bottom line expenditures, once again, is about rounding up. We're just shy of $13.3 million. There are exemptions from the expenditure limit. These are the exemptions that total about $1 million. These are statutory exemptions from grants to interest to our HERF and our UTCAP. So these do not apply against this expenditure limit. This is our statutory expenditure limit of $12.9 million. When you subtract this number from this number, that gets you our total expenditures subject to the limitation. That's at $12.2 million. That means we're forecasting to be under $645,000 from our expenditure limit. So, in summary, that the action in front of the council tonight is the adoption of Resolution 2024-06, which is the adoption of our tentative budget. Every community goes through this. You can watch any community in Arizona, you're gonna hear the same discussion. Establishing the bottom line of $13.3 million and establishing a public hearing date for June 4th and beginning the advertisement period. We're required to advertise the Auditor General forms. That's actually the official budget, and that's Schedule A through G. So that takes what we have here in our program-based narrative and puts it in a series of spreadsheets, and then is published in local papers, and we check that box off the list, and we go forward to our public hearing on June 4th. So that being said, Mayor, members of the council, that's the tentative budget, and I'd be glad to address any questions that the council might have.
Okay, well, good job, Gary, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
Just once again, Gary, thanks for putting together a very user-friendly document, and considering all of the very dry budget documents I looked at over my career, this is really very good. And for any resident that wants to understand how we do what we do, this does a great job doing it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? After 4 budget workshops, it's hard to think of any questions. So anyway, well done. Do we have any public comment slips? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead. Oh, this is for a different item. Thank you. So we'll close the public comment on this agenda item. And I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2024-06. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, adopting the tentative budget and bottom line for the Town of Carefree for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025, and calling for a special meeting and public hearing. Have a motion, please?
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-06, adopting the tentative budget and bottom line for the Town of Carefree for fiscal year 24-25, and setting a special meeting and public hearing for June 4th, 2024, to adopt the final budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 24, and ending June 30th, 25.
I'll second that.
Okay. Before we vote, any other comments? So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Gary. Well done. Next up, agenda item number 9. Review, discussion, and possible action on a request for approval for conversion of a parcel to a condominium plat. Okay, Stacy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the Town Council. Thank you for this evening, for your time, and thank you, Gary. A condominium conversion is the process of entitling a property that's held under one ownership or title and converting it to individually sold units or condominiums. It allows for sort of more than one single ownership. And I think that's important in this case. It's interesting, and for us in Carefree, I mean, this isn't an uncommon practice. It's somewhat uncommon for us, and so I've appreciated kind of the interest and questions that I've gotten up until this point. But to be clear, again, this is a condominium conversion at a commercial property. It's an existing development located at 7202 East Carefree Drive. And we'll look at the map in a moment. If it's at the northeast corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Drive. In summary, the request is looking to adopt or accept this condominium plat for the Carefree office condominiums, subject to 3 conditions we'll go over to in just a moment. Very straightforward. And as I mentioned before, the development is an existing complex that has been there since 2002, and it is zoned commercial. There's existing 10 suites, and the conversion to condominium plat will be the same 10 units. Yes, 2 of the units are residential. This was permitted through our zoning ordinance, and it meets those requirements for residential. No other residential units would be permissible at this point because, as the ordinance requires, you cannot have residential on the first level. So with that said, I just wanted to be clear of what property we're talking about. Again, it's the developed complex on the corner. I think there might have been some concern if that it was a vacant commercial property behind it that was developing. That is not the case. The conversion to the plat itself meets all of the requirements in terms of our town engineer reviewing those documents. It meets all of the required conversion to utilities. That was a concerning process, but it was worked through with Carefree Water as well as Liberty Sewer and the other utilities that they figured out how to address those concerns. Just looking quickly at the plat itself, this is sort of a very sort of engineered document, but you can see the layout of the site and the associated parking. What's really important as we work through this process with the town was the wash itself and being sure that that drainage easement would be maintained and still permissible for the town to address any items or anything related to that wash as it's part of our drainage system through town center. You can also see the units of the buildings on the right side of the slide. Again, building 1 and building 2 are, building 1 and building 3 are single level buildings, and building 2 is a 2-story building. With that said, again, just want to be clear, this is an existing development, it's a commercial development. All the utilities servicing the property have been notified, and there's no issues with the proposed division of the properties. I should say division of the units. The 3 conditions of approval are shown here. The reason for the first understanding if there's any change to the CCNRs, because we do have an interest in that, particularly related to the management of the wash. And then sort of some formalities of once the plat, if you choose to accept it or approve it, there's recording requirements and requirements to provide copies to the town. And as I mentioned before, which was really condition number 3, is that we would be privy to any changes to the CCNRs. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I do think there's a representative of the property owner here to answer questions. Should be made available. I thought that was him. Thank you.
Any questions from council?
Yes, so the existing buildings are gonna stay as they are? Is that the idea? And then you're just gonna go in and do tenant improvements and split them all up and so forth? Is that the strategy? What is the?
Right. Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, no, in fact, nothing's going to change with the buildings at all. These buildings have been divided into suites and rented by the single property owner since it was built. The only change is in the ownership. There's no walls that are changing. There's no units that are changing. There's no uses to the units at this time that are changing. They're just simply looking to change the nature of the plat.
So I think it just comes down to a different business model for the,
Correct, Mayor.
for
Thank
the
you.
owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have some other properties in town, maybe not be commercially zoned, but the office, like Pima Norte, I believe some of those
Yes.
are condos, not all of them, some of them. And maybe
Nope.
some of the properties behind Bash's on Bloody Basin might also
Yes.
be a similar model.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Yes, we do have a couple of complexes that are exactly this model.
You know. Any other questions? I do have some other questions. So if there's any changes to the CCNRs, it comes through us.
Yes, we are notified and have an opportunity to comment on
And
what
that's kind of
that might be.
unusual, and that's because of the
Mhm.
wash that runs through the property?
Yes, for the most part, because we do have an interest, and that easement does sort of tie back to town's allowance to, be a part of how that's maintained. So yes.
The other question I have, and this may be for the applicant, so there's 2 residential units in that complex, but reading through the CCNRs, I didn't see anything that addressed how residents should behave. Like in my residential neighborhood as an HOA, there's CCNRs that tell us what we can't do and can do, right? So we can't like hang our clothes outside to dry, things like this. So what regulates the behavior of those residents once this becomes all
Individual.
sold, individual units?
Thank you. I'm John Gray. I'm with Bowman Consulting. I was called, and I'm thrown into the fire. I was called today to help out, and I'm new to this project. I don't know all the details, but I've read the CCNRs, and there are provisions for how the property, how the residents would take care of their barbecue, the businesses they're allowed to use. There are provisions in the CCNRs for those. It doesn't get into the details you're talking about. It doesn't talk about what color you can paint your unit. And, they're not gonna change the units.
doesn't sound very loud to me.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is more an office condominium than it is a residential. There are 2 residential users there, and they're going to have their small business. And this
Well-
is a great model for them. They can live and work in the same location.
My question to you is, that, you know, right now, if you were to own the building, there were 5 tenants, we would deal with the owner of the building with respect to interfacing with the town.
Correct.
Now, going forward, we're gonna have 5 individual owners, because they're gonna own each their own unit. How do we collectively deal in negotiating and discussing and, you know, with the town? How's that done?
There will be an HOA or a POA, a Property Owners Association. You would deal with the Property Owners Association first. You would have one direct contact there.
Okay, all right, very good. I just wanted to make sure we had some mechanism available for that.
Mayor and Councilmember Hatcher, it's very similar to as we operate with residential homeowners association. I would say I also did read the CCNRs again after we had a discussion about this. I did read that there are not guidelines, but requirements on how how each of the units can, quote, behave in the development in terms of relating to noise and other effects. I don't know if they get into quite the detail of some of the things that you had mentioned, Mayor, but I do believe that they have covered opportunities of discussing if nuisances should arise within their community. I think they're probably going to self-manage themselves. I think being residential and business, I think there's probably that balance. But getting, so I did read some language that I think addresses this. Obviously, the town has, its requirements if there's noise problems or trash problems or things to that effect. We have that opportunity in terms of our governance. But then as going back to the main question, being an HOA, we will have a contact and deal with any kind of issues that may arise and keep the HOA or POA, as you mentioned, informed if they do decide to make changes to their CCNRs.
What's the economic driver for this? For you to do this?
I'm not privy to that. I've spoken to the owner, but he did not discuss that. They bought this property in 2008. It was very run down. They lost all the businesses that were there during the recession. They put a lot of time and money into this, and now I think they want to sell it and move on to the next one.
Currently, all 3 buildings are under one owner?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I think it's a very handsome project, and I think it's well maintained, and I hope that it would continue that way. I'm worried that we might not have control for paint. Right now, it has a uniform paint color. If we have individual owners that can paint one section another color, I have a concern.
Mayor, Councilmember Miller, I believe it's addressed in their CCNRs, but I also believe that goes sort of back to its original approval. I don't believe that they are, they would come to the town in terms of any color changes, but I don't believe that anybody's even thought or suggested that there be anything as such. I believe it is also defined in the requirements that, it has to sort of be a cohesive and, well-managed development. So I understand what you're saying, but I think in these cases, particularly more in the commercial setting, the town has more purview than it would in a single-family or private residential sort of circumstance.
Yep, great, thank you.
Follow up with Clint on that. It's with respect to maintenance for all 3 buildings, is there an obligation by each of the tenants to kick in X number of dollars? Is there a fund that is needed to provide for maintenance and so forth, so the funds are there to do the work that needs to be done?
Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, it's a very good question. I would presume so, but I would have to ask the applicant to answer that. Again, it goes back to, that sort of model of an HOA. So they do have to share utility payments. So, it's a good question. But I would assume that that is the case.
Yeah, that's
You
correct.
don't wanna have it end up being, I'm not gonna do it if Joe's not gonna do it, that nonsense. And we sit here, we have a beautiful property that eventually over time, is not being properly maintained. And what's our mechanism to enforce that?
Well, wouldn't the HOA and the CCNRs cover the appearance and paint schemes and
And it
everything,
does.
just like being
Right.
in any other association,
Yeah,
correct?
Councilmember Johnson, yes, I mentioned that I believe is in the CCNRs, but I think
It
that
is.
the
So
applicant was also going to.
They would be required for enforcement,
Mhm.
obviously, of all of that, not to mention the town wouldn't be very happy.
Right, and I believe you're going to answer about the funding source.
Yeah, they also have provisions in the CCNRs on how the fees are collected and how the money is used. And they have the money planned based on what they've been doing for the last 10 or 12 years. They know what they need. They're collecting enough money to take care of the maintenance, to take care of the parking, to resurface it periodically. They have monies in there, the methods to collect emergency funds if something happens, if there's a water main break or a roof leak or something of that nature.
So going back to the colors, so I looked through the CCNRs, I didn't read every word, but I did go
Right.
through it. And I may have missed it, but how are colors of the exterior, all I care about is the exterior. How is that managed? I mean, the building looks great, and all three buildings are very handsome, I drove around them.
They do.
Very nice.
They look
But
very good.
So once we go down this road, how will that be maintained? I mean, is it in the CCNRs that they're all gonna be same color, or how does this work?
I did not see any reference to that in the CCNRs.
Mayor, members of town council, just discussing it with Mr. Neese, it's a condominium association, and there's sort of the regime of the complex itself that they will manage under that HOA or association. So it's not as if one owner of a unit can decide to paint his unit a certain color. The condominium is set up so that they don't really own the exteriors of the buildings. They own the space,
Oh.
within the
Okay.
building itself, and the maintenance, the outside of the building, the parking, as he's describing, everything else is then part of the association.
So, Mayor, members of the council, think of a condominium regime as owning the air rights interior to the space within the building. That's what they're buying. Everything else, external to that envelope is the ownership of the association. And the association manages, even walls changing, within that envelope, as well as the exterior of the buildings. So there's the safe guard there that ensures that the exterior of those buildings will remain uniform.
Very good comment. So the association maintains the exterior of the buildings, maintains the roof, maintains the common areas, the wash and so forth. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I agree, yeah. So anyway, that's clear. Any other comments or questions? So we have one public comment. Ms. Stephanie Beauvoir.
Stephanie Barber, Carefree resident. I don't oppose this at all. This is actually just a learning question for Stacy. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, when you look at this property in the Maricopa records, it says commercial, and it says each of the three buildings, the PU code is office building. In none of those three buildings' PU description does it say residential. But now we hear that there are 2 residents living there. So I guess I'm just trying to learn how does that happen? How do we get residents in what is described in the Maricopa records as office buildings only? And then if I wanted to, and I bought all 10 of these, could I turn them into condominiums?
Okay. Happy to answer that. Well, I think those
Residential
are 2 questions,
condominiums,
right.
yeah.
Well, I'll answer the second question first. The answer is no, you could not
Okay.
purchase all of the units and convert all of them to residential. And it goes, leading to your second question, it all goes back to the zoning ordinance, and we've talked about our conversations related to mixed use. And so in the zoning ordinance, while the county has that information for us, it is within our town boundaries that we're managing, and we have in our zoning ordinance, we're regulating ourselves in the sense that you are permitted in town center to convert existing buildings that have a second level to allow for residential units if certain criteria is met. So back in 2020, the owner did come to the town, and through an administrative process approved by the zoning administrator, which was me, I went through the criteria. He met that criteria. He decided, and because he has one building that's 2-story, he converted those 2 units to residential. So that is permitted under our regulations, under our zoning ordinance.
Okay, so we don't have to go through necessarily a rezoning process, even though it's zoned commercial. We have the ability to go straight to the town council, or the planning, you can do that. Okay.
For existing developments, for existing buildings in town center.
Got it.
Now, if it was, let's say, if they wanted to develop the same thing on the vacant lot, that's a different process. So if it's new, it goes through a conditional use permit process, which then goes through the public meeting process.
Public meeting
So
process.
with existing buildings, and if it meets the criteria as set forth in the zoning ordinance, then it is administratively approved.
Okay, and how many of these 10 can be residential?
2 units.
2 only, okay. Thanks, Stacy, I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Sure.
Stacy, with that, what Stephanie was asking, those 2 units, the people who will own those, are they required to own the units below as part of because they own the business downstairs, they can live upstairs? Is that how it's set up?
Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, I think that what the applicant's representative was alluding to is that in the residential units, and there might be a consideration that somebody might live there and have their be a home-based office, for example. I think that's what he was referring to. So all of the units can either be owned by one person, they could be owned by 10 people. It's just like if you went into a residential condominium complex and you wanted to buy a unit, or you wanted to buy 3 units. I mean, it just depends upon how the sales move forward. The owner itself might want to keep half of them and sell half of them. You know, it's sort of an unknown in the sense that, you know, it's his right as a property owner, and to sell to sell or to manage as he sees fit. But in this case, just because one unit is above another unit doesn't mean that they have to own them both.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Miss Deborah Shannon.
Hi, I just wanted to get some clarity because I think it seemed a little conflicting. Are these going to be strictly residential, but it sounds like they're going to be live-work units?
No, that.
Okay, because when it was presented, it sounded like it was strictly residential.
No, no, it's quite the opposite of what we're trying to represent, is that the majority of the units are commercial. The one building that is 2 levels, the 2 units on the second level are the only residential units, and there's no ability at this time to convert any of the other units to residential.
Okay. And then just one other comment for the town council is coming from many HOAs in this community. Homeowners association can only be as strong as their CC&Rs and their governing documents. But there also comes at times when people still do what they want to do. So as a town council, if you could set some guidelines, requirements for this association, color or other things on the outside, that would help to hopefully eliminate problems in the future. Because we've experienced them ourselves with other properties, so I think if you guys set that, that would help a lot.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
One other public comment, Colleen Rose Skirty.
Hi, Colleen Rose Skirty, Carefree resident. I just wanted to clarify, I think, a couple things. So I did communicate with Stacy a lot today on this, and I did read the CCNRs. It does have provisions for the balconies, Mayor, on what they can do, kind of what they can't just store stuff out there, which that is very common, right? Because you don't want laundry, you don't want storage, you don't want all that out there, and it does address that. It also does address that the only 2 units that could be residential or / business are the 2 upstairs units. And that comes back to the original founders thing where we have a few of those properties where they can have that upstairs. The rest of it cannot be residential, and the businesses that they would have is kind of like what you were saying, is like a home business. The CCNRs do govern, and they should govern with their fees when they go to paint, when they go to do all those things. Now, I will say, I second the last person who was talking. I think this is why we do want design guidelines and architectural standards for the town in general, just so that we do have a cohesive look to everything. Those buildings, I agree, I think they're beautiful, and I think they have put the wording in there to keep them kind of cohesive, but I think that we should take from that for the rest of our town. So, thank you.
Thank you. Bill Doherty.
Bill Doherty, resident, and just a question for education again. When there is rent on a unit, is there sales tax collected on rent? And will the town lose any sales tax when it converts to ownership?
Well, we cannot collect rent on long-term residential leases any longer as of the 1st of, I guess, January 2025,
But
because of recent legislation.
these existing units are commercial, right?
Well, okay, the commercial units, yes, the residential half, in another few months, 6 months, we will no longer be able to do that to them.
So currently, on the commercial units, is the town getting revenue on the rent?
Yes, we do. If
And
they're
when it
rented, we do.
And when it's converted to ownership condo, they will lose it? Town will lose revenue?
Actually, that's probably a good point. Probably correct. Good point.
Mayor, likely, there might be those that are investing in the units and still utilizing and renting them to commercial entities, but yes.
Yeah, excellent.
We may, if they, if somebody who operates a business then decides to purchase the property and own his business, but there also might be, the flip side is there's people that invest in ownership of commercial properties and may rent those properties to future businesses. In that scenario, you would.
Yeah, but the chances are, at least some of them will be owner occupied and not leased. That one. Yeah, good point. Okay, we have one more. It's okay. Number 9. Wait, what was this?
Hi. Oh,
Okay, we're good?
Th-
Okay.
yeah, sorry, just kind of following up with Bill was asking about, which actually, I really appreciated all of the comments and the education points as well, because I had a lot of questions when I read through this. But actually, I was just curious, Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. Currently, are all of the units rented or like in use right now? Are there tenants that are actually occupying them, whether they be residential or commercial use? Do we know? I'm just wondering, 100% occupancy or they're vacant? That was my question. I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know, maybe the applicant knows? Okay. We don't know either.
I don't know. I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't.
Although when I drive by, there's cars there. It's doing reasonably well. Okay, so that closes public comment. Any other comments from council before we consider the resolution? All right, so hearing none, I ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02, a resolution of the Mayor and Common Council of the Town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, approving a conversion to a condominium plat or a commercial property located at 7202 East Carefree Drive and imposing conditions upon such approval.
motion to approve the request for case 2311 CP, and approval should be subject to the listed conditions or as amended by town council.
Second.
And I would just say, this as a comment, and we're all welcome to comment before we vote. It was Ms. Shannon, and you made a good comment. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to, as we move on, to create some design guidelines for the town core that will include this property. It's in our interest, for sure. Okay. All right, any other comments before we vote? So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, what'd you need? Sorry. Oh, I thought we had a motion and a second. We did it.
She made a motion. I second.
Okay, so now we're voting. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank you. And good comments from everybody. That was very good. Item number 10, review, discussion, and possible action to accept the Town Center Comprehensive Sign Plan prepared by Kimley Horn, which includes final sign designs, messaging, revised total number of signs, and proposed budget for implementation.
Thank you, Mayor,
Stacy?
members of council. Myself and Steve are just going to make some brief introductory comments, and then we'll hand it over for the main attraction. I just wanted to go back a little bit in history, and just to kind of go through how both myself and Steve, how we got where we started and how we got here today. As you've heard us say a number of times, this was identified in the Village Center Master Plan. It was a recommendation to improve wayfinding and signage in an effort to enhance the Village Center experience. So following up to that, Town Council in October of 2019 had approved a marketing plan which included implementing a new signage program. And what's important about that, at that time, is that signage was all about the visitor's arrival experience and as a destination and being able to find their way around town center. This was not about marketing with signage to draw people into town center. This was, once they're here, we need to help them get around and explore the town in a cohesive way. So in February, so as part of that discussion, we put out an RFQ for interested experts in the field. We interviewed, and in February of 2020, we were fortunate to hire Kimley Horn to go through this comprehensive sign plan process. Of course, not too long after that, COVID hit, and we all know that what that did, and it basically delayed us for a year. But we did get back on track in April of 2021 and began the process. Kimley Horn did some on-site studies and research, and we started holding stakeholder meetings, as well as reaching out to nearby neighborhoods that bordered town center. And I failed to mention at this time in the process, once we fired back up in April, we also decided to add a circulation component that tied into how the signage would also tie into how people would circulate through the town, both in the pedestrian aspect as well as a vehicular aspect. So we kind of broadened that scope. Through those meetings, there was usually consensus on signage, but there was quite a bit of differing of opinions on circulation, so we pulled that out and focused on signage. And so working forward, we brought first draft to P&Z in November of 2022, and then eventually to you, Town Council, for approval in June of 2023. We know based on costs, you asked us to, or you tabled that conversation and asked us to look further, and that's where Steve stepped in to continue the process forward.
Mayor, Council, yeah, just to pick up from here, Stacey and I have been working on this together for a fairly long time, and obviously the process started before I even was hired, but and Stacey had brought Kimley Horn in, and Kimley Horn's been a really good partner as for us to be able to work through this process as far as being able to start with the signage and then kind of look at it more comprehensively as we look at circulation and as we look at how we're gonna do parking, because it does all fit together. And so we did go through a fairly good stakeholder process. We had a large group that talked about all of these specific issues. When that was brought to the council, I think in June, is that when it was? Almost a year ago. There were some concerns that relates to costs, and part of it was as we went through the initial conversations, we always talked at a very high level about what cost was. And the idea was to bring more of a comprehensive plan and have discussions about phasing and costs into the future, understanding that that was gonna be an issue. But we totally understand that sticker shock can be a thing that we experienced. And so a process that we were gonna go through anyhow, as far as being able to evaluate how we were gonna implement that particular comprehensive plan and how that would have been delivered, through time, was something that was gonna be considered. We ended up doing it anyhow instead before we actually finalized the plan, which, to be honest with you, I think it was actually a pretty good process to go through. And so there's actually 6 members that were included in a stakeholder group that we put together that combined the original stakeholder group with some new entrants into the stakeholder group. And we gave members of the community a few months to be able to sign up and say they would want to be interested in participating in that conversation. And I do believe we had a really good group of stakeholders that participated, both all from businesses, from property owners, and to residents as well. Residents that live within the area and residents that don't specifically live right here in the town center. So I thought we really were able to get a great a look at how this signage plays into how we can promote visitors to come to the town. And to Stacy's point, this really isn't about, it's not marketing. This is about place setting. This is so people can understand that they've arrived someplace. Sense of arrival, which is one of the issues that was brought up when we looked at the master planning process. And the other one is once somebody arrives, how do they get to where they want to go? And then from that place, they can have a sense of discovery to be able to find the types of businesses. And as Rebecca's going to walk through that, it's more than just science. There's a lot of other things that go into the science that relates to pre-trip planning, and I don't want to steal her thunder, but there's a lot of things that play into that. And I would like to say that through this process, we had 4 meetings that we had with the stakeholder group, and we did this pretty quickly. We didn't want to let too much grass grow between each meeting and have these conversations. And I feel like, first of all, quality was number 1, and everybody agreed that the quality that was presented is something that we should maintain, and I think everybody came to pretty much consensus on having that higher level quality of signage. The other issue that we dealt with then was obviously cost, but it was also the total number of signs, and the concept that we might have too much or overkill or sign clutter. And then the other aspect of it was, when we looked at the comprehensive nature and the total number of signs, well, it doesn't necessarily match things that may happen in the future. So if we're looking at circulation changes, or we're looking at as things develop or some redevelopment, that may change over time. And so that was something that was that we discussed, and we were cognitive of that conversation. And so I do want to make it clear, because several members on the committee want us to make this very clear, that the proposal you're going to hear tonight, first of all, we're not asking for money. I just want to make that clear. This is just, when you get to the budget, it's a budgetary number for what the recommendation is to implement. That this is not a phased project, that this is going to be a project that, this is it. We looked at what the needs and necessities are for today, and anything into the future that you see is going to be evaluated in the future. And it may change, because we don't know what the future necessarily looks like, so we'll continue that evaluation. But what this comprehensive sign plan does is sets the tone for the quality, the look, the feel, the colors, and then we can go through those evaluation process. So I'd like to say that I really feel comfortable that we were able to take a number that was pretty high, I think over north of $1 million, and we're really coming down to something that is going to fit within the budget. And that was the other concern that we wanted to look at, was our overall budget. Not just the total budget, but what we can fund in any given period of time. So if we look at our capital planning budget for, let's say, the town center, and it's $600,000, well, you don't want to spend all $600,000 on signage. And that was another thing we wanted to talk about. So that we were conscious of that as we went through that conversation. And so we set a $350,000 kind of target. If we could get less, great. But really, as you look at what we put in the report, is trying to have some kind of $400,000 kind of a limit hard stop, knowing that there may be contingency as we go to implement this particular plan. As far as, we don't know what construction costs are going to be. But as Rebecca will tell you, the numbers that you're going to see are soup to nuts. I mean, they're everything that's included. It's all design, whatever is related to those specific signs. That's how the budgetary was created. So The other thing I want to make very clear from the stakeholder group is that as we go through and we look to get the actual costs and designs for all the things, it will go through a public competitive process where we will get those competitive bids. I know Mr. Skirty had asked about that as far as the process. So this isn't getting money now. This is about setting the tone and understanding where we think we are going to be in costs. And as we go through the process, there will be the budget process. There will be a lot of analysis that gets through of what that's going to look like and what that's going to cost. And if costs come in way too high, then we're going to have to sit back and reevaluate. So I just want to kind of talk about that. We have 6 members here from the committee, and I'd hope that if they want, you know, as part of this process, when Rebecca's is finished, that they can come up and say a few words about the process. I do believe it's kind of a model to, as Gary was pointing out, how we can look at other issues as it relates to the town. In particular, the gardens, as Gary mentioned. I think this could be a good model for a stakeholder group where we can get a wide, diverse group of people who have various different interests. And the beauty of this stakeholder group, and I think everybody would agree and commented on this, was the level of decorum that we had. There was no name calling. It was very, very professional from the community perspective and from everybody's perspective. And I personally thought it was very enjoyable, and I hope, hopefully this can be the model we move forward with. With that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for having the opportunity to be back here and present to you all the updated town center signage and circulation plan. So today we'll review the changes that have been made since our initial presentation to you all almost a year ago. Let me start with the original. So if you recall, we looked at a number of different signage options. As Steve mentioned, this is only a portion of the plan. The signage is one piece, but there is also pre-trip planning and other strategies that are mentioned in the full wayfinding packet. But what we're talking about today specifically is the signage component of that. The original signage that we looked at was pretty comprehensive in terms of the different types of signs that were being considered. And so we had, you know, a wide suite of considerations that we are looking at. Some of them you'll see in the plan moving forward, and some of them have been removed from consideration. But this is a reminder of all of the different sign types that we were considering at the beginning of the process. Through conversations over the last few months with the updated stakeholder group, we have targeted the signage to really look at the highest and best value for the community and for the town's vision. We wanted to make sure that we weren't compromising quality, so we did keep the same level of quality, but we looked specifically at minimizing the different types of signs and also looking at where these signs could be placed, keeping in mind the future unknowns for the circulation plan. With that being said, what's shown here is the preferred signage option and what is being recommended as part of the signage and circulation plan. We have gateway signage, which is the tall sign there on the left. We have arterial directional signage, which will be located along Tom Darlington and Cave Creek. We have local directional signage, which is located within Town Center. And then we have an option for parking signage that would be associated with any public facility lots and a kiosk. A change from the previous conversations that we've had is that we have removed the option of a digital kiosk. The cost was prohibitive. So this is a traditional kiosk, but with the option of having an item like a QR code or some kind of feature that can link to the town's website. So again, as a reminder, we looked to complement the colors, textures, and tones that we see within the community to really draw from existing imagery for the look and feel of these signs. The color palette is the same as what we had presented previously, where we did look at various colors to designate different destination zones within the community. The olive green reflects any recreational item on the signage. Burnt orange is for commercial, and then the dark goldenrod color is any municipal. Rusted brown is the main material, and dark chestnut is an accent. The dark chestnut is what you see in the current arches that are your gateway features today.
And then again, just a look at some of the inspirational imagery for what is driving the design of the signs themselves. We have the sundial with its perforated metal panel that will comprise the majority of the sign, rusted metal finishes, and also the dark chestnut, as I mentioned, in gold accents to really tie everything together. As far as placement, so we have 3 gateway signs that are being proposed in the plan. They are at the, designated by the orange diamond, as shown on the screen. And you'll see they are at the 3 main entry points into the town center. The purpose of the gateway signs are to slow traffic down, really show that you're coming into an important area, and to start setting the tone for visitors as they're arriving into town center, that they're arriving to someplace special. So those 3 gateway features, again, are at the perimeter of the center, so that we're starting that messaging as we move inward. We have 4 high-speed directional signs that are located on the arterials. What we're showing are 2 associated with the Wampum Way entry on Tom Darlington. We have 1 at the north end, that's right north of Hoe Road. And then we have the final one on Cave Creek at the intersection of Carefree Drive. These are associated with the major entry points and again help direct visitors into town center. As shown on the sign, there are the green items are the recreational. We have the commercial items, and then more of the municipal side as well. So finishing out the sign package, we have 4 of the local road signs. So those are the designated by the blue hexagon. There are also 4 of those. We have 1 that's located at the intersection of Hoe and Hum Road. We have a second that's at the entry into the main gardens area at Ho Hum. We have a second one as you continue in off of Cave Creek. And then our final one is at Wampum Way. And these are, again, to direct interior traffic to different destinations within the center. Oops, let me go back. Lastly, we have a kiosk. This is our information kiosk. It's located here where we have the current kiosk. It has paper maps that are located in there, so we would replace that with this kiosk. And then the parking signage, we're budgeting for 12, and those would be associated with public lots.
So, looking at these, they're to scale, you've got these sort of pictures of people
Correct, yes.
next to them, so they would be normal person height.
Normal person height. So yes, what we have here is people associated with each of the signs, so you can see the relative size of them.
Thank you.
So with the recommended signage that we've presented, the total based on some preliminary estimates, and as Steve mentioned, this is something that is contingent on construction costs, but the costs that we've received thus far are for complete in-place signage, meaning the design, the permitting, all of the infrastructure that's associated with them, the materials and the labor to do the installation. For all of the signage represented in this plan, the total cost is $345,190. So that is within that recommended range of $350,000. Again, allowing us some flexibility based on construction costs to potentially look at any increases up to that $400,000 limit.
Can I just see the gateway signs again?
Of course. So these are tall, and so they have the potential to have a lit feature to them, so there could be lighting associated with them. As we get into costs and budgeting, those are some of the items that will be considered.
So there is no lighting now?
Lighting is considered in them right now.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yes,
Cause that would be really cool at night and,
it would.
yeah, I think these are really tasty. I've liked them all along, and I think personally you've done a great job of getting within our budget, with also the potential of adding later on, so.
The plan as it stands, this is the recommendation for, this is what we recommend will provide the highest use for the community right now. And the important thing to note with these sign locations is that they will be in this location even with any anticipated circulation changes. There aren't any conflicts that could arise in these locations in the long term.
And I have another question. We've got a whole menagerie of different kinds of signs around town. So, I think we were gonna repurpose the ones that look like sundials, right? There were 3 or 4 of those.
Though I will get to a portion here that talks about which signage that is currently existing is going to be removed as part of the plan and which is going to stay.
Great, thanks.
I have a question about the kiosk.
Of course.
Is this an interactive device, or is it just
It is not.
informational? Right,
It's
right.
just an informational. So, the digital kiosk cost is pretty significant.
Yeah.
So just that alone, if I recall correctly, was close to $100,000 just for that. So
Right.
we looked at scaling that significantly back. It is a what we'll call a static sign, but it could be designed in a way to have information added to it and removed from it. There's also a recommendation to add that QR code and add some links on there to your town website so that visitors can access real-time events and look at upcoming activities through that option.
So the menu can be changed?
The menu can be changed, yes, but
Thank
it's
you.
not a digital sign.
Steve, did we at one time talk about when people were driving on Tom Darlington or Cave Creek Road that something would just appear on their cell phones?
Well, a long time ago, when we were looking at the Google, you know,
Okay.
and that was kind of a thing,
That
but I
was-
don't know if that's even a thing anymore, where all of a sudden Google just shoots something into your, you know, and we were looking at that to see if that was a possibility, but part of our problem with Google here is we don't have addresses for a lot of things, and so Google has a tough time providing Google Business Services, so.
Okay, thanks.
So, your question was timely. So the recommended sign removals, this is, it shows a lot of colors on here, and I'll just give some orientation. The orange diamonds are existing gateway signage that's to remain. So those are things like your sundial, which of course is not going anywhere. That is a gateway feature though. We have the arches, which are also going to be staying. We have the center monuments at the 2 main entries to the community that would also stay within the existing traffic circle landscaped areas. The green symbols are what we call destination signage. So those could be even the garden boulders that exist right now that say Carefree Gardens. That's a destination sign. We're showing all of those as remaining. We have other signage on the pavilion and other items like that that are currently existing destination signage, which will stay in place. We have the blue squares, which are directional signage to remain. We have several of those, and those do include the sundials. So this plan is calling for keeping 2 of the 3 existing sundials in place. So we have one in this location, and we have one in this location as well. The only current sundial sign that would be removed is directly adjacent to where we would put a new sign. So we are not calling for them to be repurposed in this plan. The last one to remain informational signage, these are the purple circles. Those are the current, they're very small kiosks within the gardens that have little maps in them. Those are staying because they are providing information. Ideally, we'd update the maps that are in them, but they are currently there, and we're not recommending any additional signage in the gardens. So there are 9 existing signs that are going to be removed as recommended in this plan. And those include some of the current directional signage that has differing looks to them. That's the majority of what's being removed. If you see here, the squares, the yellow squares are all the directional signage that are being removed, and then we do have that one informational sign that will be replaced with the new kiosk. And because you're probably curious, this is an overlay of what is staying with the new signs that are coming. So as I mentioned, we're removing 9. We are adding 12 new ones. So there's a net gain of 3. The parking signs are not shown. Again, those are small banners that could be on existing light poles or on small poles that would be within the public lots. But the net increase is 3 signs, and where, again, we focused the signs are in the locations mostly where there were already directional signs. We're just creating consistency. And then we have the 3 gateway signs, which are new, that are at the main entrance points to the community. And that is an overview of what we've presented in the wayfinding plan and signage plan for you all. So any questions?
Any questions? Councilman Hatcher?
Pardon me. Thank you. Nice presentation. Excuse me if I had to step out. I had to get some medication for my back. When you have the template down here at the bottom, it says gateway signs to remain, to remain, to remain. Is that you're replacing that gateway signage with something new? So what is remaining is the type of sign for each one of these? The destination signage, it's going to be a new sign, but it's going to be a destination sign. Is that what that's telling me?
So the legend here at the bottom, all of these are existing signage that
So
are
all
staying.
existing signage that's staying.
That are staying, yes. And the new ones are at the top. So the symbols at the top are the new. This map is showing the new symbols overlaid with the existing to remain.
Do you have a slide that shows what you're removing and what it's being replaced with at a particular location to identify whether it be a gateway or destination signage? I'd be interested to see the comparison.
I not overlaid into one, but I can kind of talk through.
You know what I'm saying? So you can
Yeah.
see, the
Yeah.
old and the new and how it's going to be
Sure.
wonderful and beautiful.
So I can talk through that a little bit. So this location here, this is a current sundial sign. So this is being replaced with one of the arterial directional signs. We're adding an arterial directional sign on the other side of the road to catch both directions of travel. And in doing so, we're removing a center directional sign that's there because we're able to now capture both sides. So we're putting 2 back where there are 2 currently in this location here. We are also adding a new sign where there is currently a directional sign here at Ho-Hum Road. So this is another location where we're taking what's there, replacing it with a new one. In this location, there are 2 directional signs currently. We are only adding 1 back in this location at this opposite corner. So here's a net loss. These 2 we're not replacing with anything in this location, but we are adding a new one over
Those are
here.
directionals?
They are current directional signs, yes. But they are not being replaced. And then we are, again, adding those gateway signs that are brand new at all 3 points. So there is nothing currently there, but we would add 3.
Mayor and Council,
So, okay, go
sorry.
ahead.
I did want to point something out real quick before, in case somebody doesn't ask a question and I forget, is one of the questions I got asked through this process was, what are we going to do with all the sandwich boards and other signage that businesses put out there? And so the town's been very lenient on that because obviously businesses want to get the exposure, and the idea is that this is going to help drive that kind of traffic, and so that we can look back and start looking at how we enforce the ordinance to make sure that we don't have a lot of the sandwich boards out in perpetuity and things on the side of the road and feather banners and all those other things. So, because I know people have been complaining that's been cluttering some stuff up, and so this is a way for us to be able to clean that up in a nice, as Councilmember Carter said, tasty way. So.
Any other comments? So I have just a couple things. One, I would say the plan, I like the plan, and I think you've really done a great job, so my hat's off to you and the stakeholders. I think we have a few of them here, you did a great job. And you did what the council asked you to do, right? We needed to rein it in, and we needed to get public participation. That's exactly what we got. So I'm really pleased with that. Couple of questions. When we talk about these directional signs that are going, I think what these signs that you're talking about are the ones that have horizontal little placards on there that
Correct.
say Starbucks or say Giordano's or say something.
Correct.
They're the ones that are going to be removed.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, so we are not putting any business names on the signs, the new signs.
Okay. On the kiosk, so how many sides will be, like, our current kiosk has 3 sides to it. How many sides are on this one that we're proposing?
This one is currently proposed as double-sided.
Okay. And I saw on the, if I can see it on the slide here, the LS and the HS, what does that tell us?
Those are just our internal designations on calling out the signs. So the LS, those are the local road directional ones, and the HS are the arterial directionals.
Okay. You refer to the parking signs as banners, but they're made out of metal.
They
correct?
could be fabric, but our intention is for them to be made out of metal.
So in your estimation, like we see it right here, if it's on here yet, so this
Metal.
estimation is metal.
Yes, yes.
Let's see here.
That's correct. They're all vertical. And yes, it's just the one kiosk, but yeah, it's vertical. They would be lit, yes.
And just one comment about parking signs that are made out of metal on gas lamps. I mean, they may act like a big sale. So I would just be cautious about that as we go through this process.
Yes, and so there was some confusion on our way of showing it, but the little dots that you see in those signs are perforated metal, so there will be some permeability to them, which is helpful in that regard. But yeah, those would be fabricated out of that kind of permeable metal with some of the solid elements associated with it.
And if the council moves ahead and approves the plan, what will happen? Maybe this is a better question for Stacy. What wheels will be in motion?
Right, thank you, Mayor, members of council, and thank you, Rebecca, great presentation. So the next steps is that we've got a line item that's moving forward within the budgeting process. And so with the hopeful adoption of that, we will move forward as to creating a package to then be solicited for bidding opportunities. So we would go through the bidding process and, see what is the lowest but meets our intent of our signage, and reevaluate from that point on and see if we have to make adjustments. We'll come back to you. If not, hopefully we'll come forward with a selected vendor to move forward with implementation.
And what's a reasonable timeline to expect installations?
Do you have an idea? Yeah.
So for actual installation, I think the installation could be pretty quick once we get the contractor selected. I think fabrication is where the time is to be determined depending on materials. Material lead times right now can be pretty significant. So I would estimate, at minimum 6 months.
Okay, so maybe the beginning of the high season next year.
Potentially.
Okay, that'd be fine. I noted if you go through the plan, there's some things which are not necessarily directly sign related. So the circulation and parking related. So if the plan is approved, we still want to lose sight of those things because they're in here also. And there's an expectation that there'll be work done on those things, whether it's the mobile app or thinking about our sidewalks or especially the circulation or the driving on Tom Darlington.
Correct, yeah, there are some recommendations in the plan based on what we saw in our site evaluation, that there are some significant challenges that do need to be addressed. We have some major intersection areas that need further study. We have a whole host of recommendations in there for additional study and additional evaluation down the line.
And will the stakeholder group continue work on circulation and parking?
Mayor, yes, the same group will continue on this topic. It was inclusive of signage and circulation, so yes.
So I would recommend we get on with that pretty quick before people disperse for the summer, at least the first meeting, sure. All right, any other comments? Oh, sorry.
Circulation, giving direction for people to travel?
So the circulation, the circulation component was somewhat born out of looking at how people are moving throughout town center and realizing there's some significant sidewalk gaps. There are some challenges with how the current traffic circles are being used, for example. So the circulation component of this has been pulled from specifically the sign component, but it is to look at ways to improve vehicular circulation, pedestrian circulation, and bicycle circulation through town.
I just want to add real quick to an answer to that. So when we actually added the circulation and parking, one of the great things is that because of the work that they're doing for the signage program, it actually allowed us to be able to have crossover, to be able to do the circulation and parking planning in concert with the signage. So it allowed us to actually have a lower cost as if we were to do them separately, to be able to combine all that effort together. So that was one of the reasons why we were able to do that. And so when you look at the final deliverable, what we'll get as far as the circulation, we're actually going to be looking to get 30% engineering drawings for Cave Creek Road and Tom Darlington Road, which will help define specifically what we want to see there. So as development does occur on some of these infill lots, or we look to redevelopment, then we can look to get those off-site improvements to be completed by whoever develops those specific sites as part of a way to finance how we can do some of these circulation improvements, as well as looking at to address the safety issues. So it also, when we were looking at all the crosswalk studies and how to really connect neighborhoods back in and keep things safe, that was the other part. So it all kind of came together, and it allowed us to look at it comprehensively. So, and then the other thing I want to just mention real quick is we do have on-building signage and private signage that you'll see. And so this isn't, I just want to let people clear that we aren't dealing with what you see on somebody's building at this point, or what you'll see in front of a building like a monument sign that has names of businesses. But to one of the comments that was made as far as looking at design review guidelines, one of the things that we do want to look at is how we deal with that signage, and then how it fits in with what we want to see, and maybe some continuity to the signage package that we're doing. Maybe it's with colors, or kind of how that all fits together. And so just for point of clarification, that is a different type of signage, but it is important that we look at it as part of how we look at design review or design guidelines for the town. So.
And just, I assume that as you're going through the town with the circulation and really paying attention to all the sidewalks and ramps and so forth, that you make a note that there's some things that need to be fixed from a safety standpoint, so we can address
Absolutely.
that as well, that's all.
Yep.
I'd like to comment. I think it's a job well done. I like in addition to directing people, the signage offers a unification, a great look to the town. I like how it connects with the great big arches. I see a relationship there. I see a relationship to some of the existing signs that you're keeping. So it gives the town a fresh look. I think it's needed badly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other comments?
I just want to thank you. I think that you guys have done a great job. You delivered everything that I was hoping for, and I think it looks great, and I hope we get a chance to get it going soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And instead of, our 3 minutes afterwards of everything, and if anybody from the stakeholder group would like to come up, you know, and talk about whether it's the plan or the process or whatever, you know, I'd encourage, if you don't have to, but anybody who would like to, you're more than welcome to.
We can do it as part of the public comment.
You wanna do this part of the program? Okay.
Any other comments from council? So anyone, this will have to have some kind of structure. So if you wish to speak, you just gotta fill out a form. In the meantime, Mr. Anton Wilkie.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. My name is Anton Wilkie. I'm a Carefree resident. I am one of several signage stakeholders that are here tonight. And I can assert that that is, what you saw is indeed what we agreed to. I did miss one of the 4 meetings, but Stacy and Steve were nice enough with their time to meet with me and tell me what I missed. And I want to thank people. I want to thank Kimberly Horn, who always gets called Kimberly Horn. They did a ton of work, and along with the previous signage committee, stakeholders group, they did a ton of work before we got here. It was a great place to start from. And Kimberly Horn did a lot of work during the process too. They consolidated all the input. You generally put together the next presentation. It was always professionally done. It was really good. Also, the walking tour we did at the beginning, I want to tell everyone that was a very valuable experience. It helped us put together the circulation elements with the signage elements. Because one of the challenges in doing the signage plan first is that you have to think about if circulation changes, how's it going to be affected? And that part was pretty well thought out, I think. We already have a head start on the circulation plan because of that. The business reps that showed up, that was really critical. That really mattered because they were stakeholders that really had a stake. I mean, the signage was really important to them, and it was really valuable for us to get their feedback on what they thought it would do for them and why it was necessary. The stakeholders themselves, we didn't all have the same views coming in, but everybody, and I think Steve said this earlier, everybody came in with a cooperative spirit. I mean, we really did talk through issues, we negotiated. We agreed on those things we could agree on. And in the end, we think that's all we need. I will say, though, that one thing that's important, I think, is to do a follow-on evaluation. We talked about after this project is over, after the signs are up, we have metrics we can track. We want to track them. We want to see how effective everything was. And if there's another project needed, we'll know. Or if the town develops in a different direction, maybe signs have to be moved, maybe some signs need to be removed. We don't know. But follow-on evaluation piece is a real big piece of it. And finally, I want to thank Stacy and Steve. They were herding cats most of the time. They did a lot of moderation. They did a lot of facilitation. In the end, I'm really happy with what the group did. I think most of us are. For me, it was a very successful result and a satisfying experience. So thank you.
Great, well, thank you, and thanks for your work on the committee. Ms. Diane Roth.
Hi, Diane Roth, Carefree resident. I bring a different point of view, having a long career in retailing and 35 years having my own store in a small town. So it's kind of like putting the chicken before the egg here. You need a lot of people in town to need that many signs. And when you Google our town, it's a 6-minute walk around the town. So I could see 2 or 3 signs, but not that many. Most retailers will tell you the only signs they care about is the ones coming off the road that say shops, parking. That's the most important thing. I think some of the money would have been better spent helping the retailers in the PR point, getting the town maybe a little more uniform with the stores. So, and looking at, the circulation maybe one way, moving people around town. But I think a lot of this, you're kind of worrying about the wrong things. So you're focusing on signage instead of supporting your retailers, since we are sales tax based, and we hear that over and over again. So you want to get your retailers healthy and important. You want to bring people here. It's funny, you go to Kierland, which has huge money per square foot. They have a lot of sale signs, not S-A-L-E, S-A-I-L, on the lampposts that are very effective. When you walk and you see, and they'll tell you where you're going. And they're a lot bigger than we are, and they make a lot more money. Maybe we should copy them. It's not that I'm against signs, I'm against the number of signs. It's 6 minutes, it's 2 blocks. So you need just a few, and usually just for the parking, to bring people off the highway into town. So I'd like to see us focus on the shops and helping them, instead of spending, which I think is a crazy amount of money, on top of, I'm sure, the consulting fee. We already paid you. So probably close to $600,000-700,000 all in. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. June Riley.
June Riley, resident of Carefree. I agree with Diane. Maybe I felt like I was the only one in the room taken back by all of these signs. We're a small town. And I just feel like it's just overwhelming that you have clusters of signs. And if everybody in this room wants to go forward with it, I would ask if we could possibly do a model in the center of town of all these signs so people can actually see what it's going to be like before we proceed with this.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, Mr. Don Little.
Mayor, council. First of all, I kind of want to agree with him. We, the stakeholders group did a great job. We came from pretty far apart, many of us, and I was amazed, though, how everybody was welcoming and listened and valued everybody's opinions. We came up far apart. We kept compromising, and we actually did reduce the sign by a huge amount of signs from where we started with. And I just had 2 knee replacements. I can't walk the town in 6 minutes, I can tell you that. I couldn't run it in 6 minutes. But I will tell you, as a business owner, 2 business owners, business property owner and a homeowner living here, the other thing I would say about the businesses, and I think we were pretty split up with business owners and residents at these meetings. It was pretty even. And I know Steve's heard me say at many of the emergent meetings, and I've upset some people where I've said that 30% of the businesses should leave. Now, I still stick to that because it's more up to the business to promote their business, to market their business, to get out in front of their business, just like my A-frames. Okay, I get it, some of my A-frames may go away. But the reality is it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. If I'm marketing my business, promoting my business, like even when the art festival comes, right? How many businesses complain about the art festival? Quite a few do. It's because they're sitting in the back of their business instead of doing something about it. My restaurant, the bicycle shop, we crush it. Every art festival, everything this town ever does, we crush it because we jump on that and we don't look to complain. We don't look to complain about the parking, right? I mean, you can't park at my restaurant during the art festivals, and yet what are my numbers? We crush it. Anyway, I'm in big support of the signage. I think it's a great idea. And again, the stakeholders group did an amazing job. I was overly impressed with how everybody got along, and over time we came together, we reduced the numbers, and we got to something that actually did make sense. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have no other slips, so that'll close the public comment part of this discussion. Any other comments from council? You're welcome to.
Thank you. Nice work. I mean, I just hope that, it's a big number, relatively speaking, for a small town. I just hope that the work, and I agree with Clint, it's gonna really provide continuity, very attractive, no doubt. But I do wanna follow up and do our best to track it and see if we can quantify some kind of metrics of return on this, because it's a big number, and hopefully we can go forward with some other renovations downtown to further enhance the beauty of our town. Thank you, that's it.
And I would say, just to piggyback on that, so coming up with metrics may be difficult, but you're in the sign business, so you've probably been asked this virtually every time you go before a council. And so, your ideas would be very welcome.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, and we've seen that in other communities that have installed signs. They've noted business increases. We have, you know, examples that can be provided in the future as well.
Okay, good. Okay, hearing no other comments from council, I would ask for a motion to accept the town center comprehensive sign plan prepared by Kimley Horn, which includes final sign designs, messaging, revised total number of signs, and a proposed budget for implementation.
I would love to make that motion.
Anyone would love to second it? Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to the stakeholder group again. Thank you for all the public input. And even though there may still be some disagreements on the scope of the project, I think we've really reined it in from what it was initially, and it'll prove to be very productive for the town.
Yes. Thank you all very much.
Next up, call to the public. Do we have any call to the public slips? We have none. Closes call to the public.
Okay.
Adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.